Light and Wellness, a transdisciplinary approach. This lecture explores the relationship between light and wellness. The lecture will first establish some fundamental criteria for wellness and then explore its relationship to light. There is a fundamental difference between healthcare and wellness. Based on the illness-wellness continuum provided by physician John Travis, healthcare is a pathogenic and reactive approach that focuses on a treatment model of diseases and injuries. Wellness, on the other hand, is a salutogenic and proactive approach that focuses on a wellness model of pursuing optimal health. This means that wellness goes beyond disability, symptoms, and signs into deeper aspects such as awareness, education, and growth. Wellness, by definition, is a modern word with ancient roots. The ancient definition of wellness is a holistic system tailored to each person's unique constitution, namely exercise, hygiene, nutrition, and social interaction, with the goal of maintaining a balance that prevents illness. It basically describes the balance of the five natural elements, namely earth, water, air, fire, and ether or space in a person's body. The modern definition of wellness is the pursuit of activities, choices, and lifestyles that lead to a state of holistic health. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, a branch of the US Department of Health and Human Services, has laid out 8 dimensions of wellness, namely physical, emotional, spiritual, intellectual, environmental, social, occupational, and financial wellness. Having established all the necessary fundamentals about wellness, let's explore how light relates to wellness. For ease of comprehension, these 8 dimensions have been divided into 2 broad categories of internal and external dimensions. The internal dimensions include physical, emotional, spiritual, and intellectual, which relate to the internal state of our body and mind. The external dimensions include environmental, social, occupational, and financial, which relate to the way we interact with the external world and how it influences us. Please note that this is not a rigid division, as all dimensions interact and influence each other at all times. These 8 dimensions can be further divided into 4 pairs, where each pair leads to the fulfillment of a desired outcome. Once again, this pairing is only a conceptualization and not set in stone. Let's look at how light influences the first pairing of physical and environmental wellness. Physical wellness is about our body's cardiovascular, cognitive, and metabolic functions and is primarily dependent upon the proper functioning of the circadian system. Circadian rhythm is the natural approximate 24-hour patterns that the body and the brain go through, allowing for changes in the body's activities and sleep cycles along with various other functions. What is important to note is that exposure to light, especially sunlight, triggers the brain to release a hormone called serotonin. Serotonin is associated with appetite, digestion, boosting mood, and helping a person feel calm and focused. Similarly, at night, darkness triggers the brain to release another hormone called melatonin. Melatonin is responsible for helping the body to sleep. Therefore, our physical wellness is dependent upon light as well as darkness. Environmental wellness is about how lighted environments help maintain our health by supporting our biological cycles. The magnitude of light during the entire course of the day should reflect the characteristics of daylight. Although daylight is perceived as white, it contains the entire spectrum of colors as a simultaneous mix of warm and cool light. The passage of time can be depicted by a continuous and gradual transition of the magnitude and spectrum of light based on the progression of the day. Therefore, lighted environments inspired by natural biological cycles lead to physical and environmental wellness. Let's look at how light influences the second pairing of emotional and social wellness. Emotional wellness is about feelings and moods and is primarily dependent upon the proper functioning of the nervous system. The nervous system consists of two parts. First is the parasympathetic nervous system, whose role is to regulate bodily functions for a safe and social or immobilized response. Second is the sympathetic system, whose role is to enable the body for a mobilized response. What is important to note is that exposure to light triggers the various neural responses. A study by lighting designer Paul Nolte shows that bright light constricts the pupils in the eye, which in turn triggers the parasympathetic response, stimulating people to interact with their surroundings. Dim light, on the other hand, dilates the pupils in the eye, which in turn triggers the sympathetic response, stimulating people to interact with each other. Therefore, our emotional wellness is dependent upon light. Social wellness is about how lighted environments strengthen a sense of belonging and connection by supporting our behavioral cycles. The distribution of light in a space, particularly the brightness on room surfaces, appears to be a major determinant on spatial satisfaction. The magnitude and spectrum of light should adequately highlight the various spatial qualities while supporting interaction in terms of the various activities and functions within the space. Therefore, lighted environments inspired by natural behavioral cycles lead to emotional and social wellness. Let's look at how light influences the third pairing of spiritual and occupational wellness. Spiritual wellness, in this case, concerns deep thinking and feelings at the subconscious level and is primarily dependent upon the proper functioning of the perceptual system. Defining characteristics for the perceptual system is not as straightforward given the great variability in human responses. One characteristic which is common for all humans is the tendency to see familiar objects regardless of changes in lighting and is called perceptual constancy. Perceptual constancy helps in spatial orientation. The position of the sun as a light source anchors the composition of light and shadows in a space to provide spatial orientation. Studies have also reported that people experience spiritual wellness when in contact with nature, thus making the case for lighting to be rooted in nature. Therefore, our spiritual wellness is dependent upon light, especially the patterns of natural light and shadows. Occupational wellness is about how lighted environments enable us to maintain a satisfying work-life balance by supporting our perceptual cycles. In interior spaces, although viewing points may differ, the logical pattern of light and shadows should reflect the quality of nature and preserve spatial orientation. The success of skillful application of lighting depends on the presence of abstracted images of nature such as color, texture, shapes, and symbols. Therefore, lighted environments inspired by natural perceptual cycles lead to spiritual and occupational wellness. Let's look at how light influences the fourth and final pairing of intellectual and financial wellness. Intellectual wellness is about maintaining optimal focus, paying sustained attention, and reliable memory, and is primarily dependent upon the proper functioning of the visual system. The visual system includes the eyes, connecting pathways through to the visual cortex, and other parts of the brain. Visual acuity is the ability to distinguish shapes, patterns, and details about objects in a space. Studies reveal a positive correlation between intelligence and visual acuity. Light plays a key role in enhancing visual acuity. Therefore, our intellectual wellness is dependent upon light. Financial wellness is about how lighted environments build our wealth and manage our finances by supporting our visual cycles. Fine-tuned lighting controls to change the magnitude and spectrum of light enable us to focus better on our work while saving cost and energy. Dimming controls give individuals the ability to raise or lower lighting levels, whereas with preset controls, individuals can set or recall multiple moods or scenes. Lighting systems with timers can be used to set different moods or scenes according to the individual's subjective requirements or match the dynamic qualities of daylight during the course of the day. Therefore, lighted environments inspired by natural visual cycles lead to intellectual and financial wellness. In conclusion, the observations made in this lecture show that wellness requires a direct connection with nature's dark and light cycles, and designed lighting and darkness can provide this direct connection for us to be rooted in sync with nature. With these thoughts, we come to the end of this lecture. Thank you very much for your attention.